The desert was silent under the cold night sky. Long empty roads cut through the endless sand, and the wind moved slowly across the dunes like a whisper. Most people avoided this road after dark because it felt lonely and strange. But for Dr. Adam Carter, it was just another long drive home. Adam was a simple doctor who worked in small desert villages where hospitals were far away. He spent his days helping people who had no one else to help them. Tonight had been especially long and tiring. And his old pickup truck moved slowly along the dark highway, while the headlights pushed away the darkness in front of him. Adam rubbed his tired eyes and focused on the road. The stars above were bright and clear, much brighter than the city sky he once knew years ago. Living in the desert had changed him. The quiet nights and empty land had made him calmer. But sometimes the silence felt a little too deep, as if the desert was hiding secrets under the sand. His truck moved around a long curve in the road when something strange appeared in the distance. At first, Adam thought it was just a rock or a broken road sign lying in the sand beside the road. The desert wind often pushed strange things across the highway. But as his truck moved closer, he noticed the shape looked wrong. It looked like a person. Adam slowly lifted his foot from the gas pedal and leaned forward, trying to see more clearly through the windshield. The headlights grew brighter on the object, and his heart began beating faster. Someone was lying in the sand. The truck stopped quickly, and the engine hummed quietly in the darkness. For a moment, Adam simply stared at the shape outside his window, wondering if his eyes were playing tricks on him. No one should be out here alone at this hour. The nearest town was more than 30 kilometers away. Then the shape moved slightly. Adam's medical instincts took over immediately. He grabbed his flashlight and jumped out of the truck. The cool desert air hit his face as he ran toward the person lying beside the road. When he reached the body, he suddenly froze for a second. It was a woman. She looked young, maybe in her 20s. Her long dark hair was partly covered with sand, and her clothes were badly torn, as if she had been through some terrible accident. Small burn marks covered the fabric, and the sand around her looked disturbed, like she had crawled across the ground before collapsing. Adam knelt beside her quickly and checked her pulse. His hands were steady from years of medical training, but what he felt made his eyes widen in confusion. Her heartbeat was strange. It was slow but strong, almost like two rhythms beating together in the same chest. Adam frowned slightly and quickly checked her breathing. She was alive but very weak. "Stay with me," Adam whispered gently, even though he knew she might not hear him. He turned the flashlight toward her side and suddenly noticed a deep wound near her ribs. The injury looked serious. The skin around it was glowing faintly in the darkness. Adam leaned closer, trying to understand what he was seeing. Then he noticed the blood. It was not red. A thin liquid slowly moved from the wound and reflected the light of the flashlight like metal. It was silver. Adam blinked in disbelief and wiped a little of the strange liquid onto his medical glove. The shining color did not change. His mind tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was some chemical, maybe paint, maybe the light was playing tricks. But deep inside, he knew something was very wrong. Suddenly, the woman's eyes slowly opened. They were beautiful but unusual, reflecting the flashlight with a faint glow that did not look human. She looked directly at Adam for one brief moment, as if she was trying to understand where she was. Her lips moved weakly. "Run," she whispered softly. Before Adam could respond, her eyes closed again and her body became still. Adam felt a cold feeling move down his spine. Run from what? He quickly looked around the dark desert. The wind moved the sand gently across the road. Everything looked empty and quiet. Then, far away on the horizon, something strange appeared in the sky. 3 distant lights slowly moved across the darkness, floating silently above the desert like silent hunters searching the land below. Adam stared at them with growing unease. Those lights were not airplanes. They moved too smoothly, too slowly, and then the ground beneath his feet vibrated slightly, like a distant machine waking up somewhere deep in the desert. Adam looked back at the unconscious woman lying in the sand beside him and realized something impossible might be happening tonight. Whoever she was, someone was clearly searching for her. And if those lights were connected to her, then this lonely desert road had just become the most dangerous place on Earth. Adam took a slow breath and carefully lifted the mysterious woman into his arms. Carrying her toward the truck, he did not understand what was happening yet, but he knew one thing for certain. If he left her here, she would die, and doctors did not abandon people who needed help. As he placed her gently inside the truck and started the engine again, Adam had no idea that this simple decision would soon change not only his life, but possibly the future of humanity itself. And if you enjoy mysterious and powerful science fiction stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next part of this incredible journey, because what was coming next in the desert was far more dangerous than Adam could possibly imagine. Adam's truck moved quickly through the dark desert road while the cold wind pushed waves of sand across the highway. The mysterious woman lay unconscious on the passenger's seat, her breathing weak but steady. Every few seconds, Adam looked toward her, trying to understand what he had just discovered in the middle of the desert. His mind searched for logical answers. Maybe she was part of some secret experiment. Maybe a chemical accident had changed the color of her blood, but deep down he knew. The truth was much stranger than anything he had seen before. The small desert clinic where Adam worked stood alone near the edge of a quiet town. It was a simple building with 2 patient rooms, a small laboratory, and an old emergency bed that had helped many injured travelers over the years. The town itself was sleeping when Adam finally arrived. Most lights in the houses were already off, and the streets were empty and silent. Adam parked the truck behind the clinic so no one could easily see it from the road. He quickly stepped out and carefully lifted the woman again. Her body felt lighter than he expected, almost fragile. As he carried her inside the clinic, the strange silver blood from her wound slowly dripped onto his sleeve, shining faintly under the yellow lights of the hallway. The moment he placed her on the emergency bed, he began working like a professional doctor again. His confusion and fear moved to the side while his training took control. He cleaned the wound carefully and prepared medical tools, but the more he examined her injury, the more questions filled his mind. The wound was deep but not normal. The skin around it was smooth and almost glowing with a faint blue light. Adam used his medical scanner to check for internal damage, but the machine began showing strange readings that he had never seen before. Her heart rhythm was not like a human heart. Instead of one steady beat, the scanner showed 2 overlapping patterns, as if her body had 2 systems working together. Adam leaned closer to the screen, his eyebrows slowly tightening with worry and curiosity. "That's impossible," he whispered quietly. He checked her pulse again with his fingers. The strange double rhythm was still there, steady but unusual. Adam then noticed something else strange while removing the damaged fabric around her injury. Under her skin near the center of her chest was a small hard shape, perfectly round and slightly glowing beneath the surface. It looked like some kind of implanted device. Carefully, Adam moved the scanner over that area. The screen immediately flickered and produced a sharp electronic noise, forcing him to pull the scanner back quickly. "Okay, that is definitely not normal," Adam muttered under his breath. He stepped away from the bed for a moment and looked at the unconscious woman again. Her face looked peaceful despite the injury, and if someone saw her from far away, they might believe she was just an ordinary human woman resting after an accident. But Adam had already seen too many impossible things tonight. The silver blood, the strange heartbeat, the glowing wound, and now a device inside her chest. Before Adam could think further, a distant sound suddenly echoed outside the clinic, the low rumble of engines. Adam quickly walked toward the window and carefully moved the curtain aside. Looking toward the main road, he saw 3 dark vehicles driving slowly through the town street. They were large black trucks with bright white headlights, scanning both sides of the road, as if searching for something. Adam felt a quiet tension growing in his chest. This town rarely saw visitors this late at night, especially not 3 vehicles moving together like a patrol. The trucks passed slowly by the clinic building, and for a moment Adam worried they might stop, but they continued down the road toward the opposite side of town. Still, something about their movement did not feel normal. They were searching. Adam stepped away from the window and returned to the patient bed. The woman's breathing had become slightly stronger now that he had cleaned the wound and given her fluids. Her skin still carried that faint glow that was almost invisible under the clinic lights. Then suddenly her hand moved. Adam quickly leaned closer as her fingers weakly grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes slowly opened again. Those strange glowing eyes looked directly into Adam's face as if she was studying him carefully. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then in a weak but clear voice, she whispered, "They're close." Adam felt his heart beat faster. "Who is close?" he asked quietly. Her breathing became heavier, as if speaking required great effort. "The hunters," she said softly. Adam frowned in confusion. "Hunters? Who are they?" Her eyes slowly moved toward the window, as if she could somehow see through the walls of the clinic and into the dark desert outside. "They track signals," she whispered. "My crash, they saw it." Adam's mind struggled to understand her words. Crash, signals, hunters. None of it made sense. "You need a hospital," Adam said calmly, trying to focus on her injury. "You lost a lot of blood. You should rest." But the woman slowly shook her head. "If they find me, they will not only take me," she said weakly. "They will study your world too." Adam felt a cold chill move across his back. Before he could ask another question, her eyes suddenly closed again and her grip on his wrist relaxed as she lost consciousness once more. The clinic became quiet again. Only the soft sound of medical machines filled the room. Adam stood there silently for several seconds, staring at the unconscious woman and thinking about her warning. Hunters, signals, study your world. Outside the window, the desert wind moved across the empty streets of the small town, carrying sand and silence with it. But far above the dark sky, something unseen was slowly scanning the desert, looking for a signal that had not completely disappeared yet. And somewhere inside Adam's small clinic, that signal was still alive. The night grew heavier around the small desert clinic as the wind outside slowly pushed sand across the empty streets of the quiet town. Inside the building, Dr. Adam Carter stood beside the emergency bed, watching the mysterious woman breathe softly under the pale medical light. Her strange silver blood had finally stopped flowing after Adam sealed the wound. But the faint glow around her injury still remained like a quiet signal hidden under her skin. Adam leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired face. His mind was full of questions that refused to slow down. Everything about this woman was impossible. Her strange heartbeat, the glowing wound, the silver blood, and the strange device inside her chest that had caused his scanner to malfunction. No normal explanation could fit what he had seen tonight. For a moment, Adam looked toward the clinic window again. The street outside remained empty and silent. The 3 black trucks he had seen earlier had disappeared somewhere deeper in a town, but the memory of those slow-moving vehicles still made him uneasy. He turned his attention back to the woman and carefully examined the strange device under her chest again. Using a small portable light, he gently moved it across the surface of her skin. The round shape under the skin reflected the light with a faint blue glow, almost like a small star trapped inside her body. Adam quietly spoke to himself as he studied it. "What are you?" he whispered. Suddenly, the device reacted. A soft pulse of blue light moved across her chest for one brief second before fading again. Adam quickly stepped back in surprise, his heartbeat rising as he watched her carefully, but the woman remained unconscious, breathing slowly like someone in deep sleep. Then the lights inside the clinic flickered. Once, twice. The medical machines beside the bed gave a short electronic beep before stabilizing again. Adam looked toward the ceiling with confusion. Power problems were not unusual in this old building, but something about the timing felt strange. At that exact moment, far above the desert sky, something silently moved through the darkness. A long black aircraft floated without sound across the stars. Its surface smooth and sharp like the body of a hunting animal. Soft blue lights glowed along its sides while invisible sensors scanned the desert below. Inside the craft, several tall figures stood around a glowing control table. Their armor was dark and smooth, designed more like living skin than metal. On the table, a holographic map of the desert slowly rotated in the air. Small signals blinked across the map like stars. One of the figures leaned forward and spoke in a deep, controlled voice. The signal appeared here. Another figure touched the glowing map, and several scanning lines moved across the desert region. The crash energy was detected 3 hours ago. The second voice replied calmly. But the life signal has weakened. The leader of the group stood silently for a moment, studying the map carefully. Then one bright signal suddenly flickered again. Weak, but still alive. The leader's eyes narrowed behind the dark helmet. She survived, he said quietly. The holographic map zoomed closer toward the small desert town where Adam's clinic stood. Deploy ground hunters, the leader ordered. We retrieve the survivor before the primitive species interferes. Far below on the desert road, the 3 black trucks that Adam had seen earlier suddenly stopped moving. Their engines became silent as the doors slowly opened. 6 tall figures stepped out onto the sand. They were not human. Their armor covered their entire bodies in smooth black plates that reflected the moonlight. Their helmets had narrow, glowing lines where eyes should have been, scanning the dark desert around them. Each one carried a long weapon attached to their arm, glowing faintly with blue energy. One of the hunters raised his arm and activated a scanning device. A thin red beam slowly swept across the ground, moving over the sand like a searching eye. The device beeped softly, then suddenly the hunter stopped moving. The scanner had found something, a weak signal coming from inside the town. The leader of the hunters turned his helmet toward the distant buildings. The survivor is there, he said calmly. Move. Inside the clinic, Adam suddenly felt the lights flicker again. This time the machines beside the bed gave a louder warning sound before returning to normal. Adam frowned and looked at the patient again. Then something unexpected happened. The device inside the woman's chest pulsed again. But this time the light did not disappear. A faint glowing pattern slowly appeared under her skin like moving lines of energy. Adam stepped closer in shock, watching the strange pattern move across her chest. The glowing lines slowly formed shapes, symbols, strange symbols that looked like a language he had never seen before. The symbols pulsed slowly, as if trying to communicate something. Adam grabbed a notebook quickly and began sketching the shapes before they faded. Just as he finished the last symbol, the glow suddenly disappeared again. The woman remained still, but outside something had already begun moving toward the clinic. Far down the dark street, 6 tall, armored hunters stepped silently between the buildings, their scanning device glowing brighter as they moved closer to the signal. Inside the clinic, Adam suddenly heard something outside. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Not the footsteps of normal people. Adam slowly turned toward the front door of the clinic. His heart began beating harder with every second. The footsteps stopped directly outside the building. For a moment, everything became silent. Then a faint red scanning light slowly passed across the clinic window from outside. Searching, looking for something inside, Adam felt cold fear rise in his chest as he slowly looked back at the unconscious woman on the bed. Her warning echoed in his mind again. They are hunters. And now those hunters had finally arrived. Inside the quiet desert clinic, the air felt heavy with tension. Dr. Adam Carter stood completely still near the emergency bed while the faint red scanning light slowly passed across the window from outside. The mysterious armored figures had stopped directly in front of the building, and their presence filled the night with a silent danger that Adam had never experienced before. For several long seconds, Adam did not move at all. His mind raced with fear and confusion while he tried to understand what kind of situation he had just stepped into. He was only a doctor who helped sick villagers and injured travelers, not someone prepared to face unknown hunters in the middle of the night. The red scanning beam outside slowly moved across the clinic walls, sliding over the glass windows like a searching eye. Adam carefully turned his head and looked at the unconscious woman lying on the bed again. Her breathing was still steady but weak. The The strange wound on her side glowed faintly under the medical light. Then suddenly the woman's eyes opened again. This time they were clearer and more focused than before. Adam quickly stepped closer, speaking in a low voice so the figures outside would not hear him. "You need to stay quiet," he whispered. "There are people outside looking for you." The woman blinked slowly and looked around the room, as if trying to understand where she was. Her gaze stopped on Adam's face for a moment, studying him carefully, almost as if she was deciding whether she could trust him or not. Then she spoke again, her voice weak but steady. "You helped me," she said softly. Adam nodded once. "You were dying in the desert." Her eyes closed briefly as if she remembered something painful. Then she slowly sat up on the bed with difficulty, pressing her hand against the injured side of her body. "They found a signal," she whispered. Adam looked confused. "Who are they?" The woman turned her head slightly toward the window where the faint red light was still moving across the glass. Her expression became serious. "The hunters," she said quietly. Adam felt a chill run through his body again. "You said that before," he replied carefully. "Who are they really?" For a moment the woman seemed to struggle with the decision to explain. Her eyes moved across the clinic equipment, the old medical machines, the simple walls of the building. She seemed surprised by how basic everything looked. Finally she looked back at Adam. "My name is Lyra," she said slowly. Adam remained silent, waiting for the rest of the explanation. Lyra took a slow breath before continuing. "I am not from your world." Adam had already suspected that truth somewhere in the back of his mind, but hearing it spoken out loud still felt unreal. "You mean another country?" Adam asked quietly. Lyra shook her head gently. "No," she said, "another star system." The words hung in the air between them like a heavy secret. Adam stared at her face for several seconds, searching for any sign that she might be lying or confused from the injury. But the calm seriousness in her eyes told him she fully believed what she was saying. "My ship was attacked," Lyra continued, speaking slowly while she regained strength. "My people are scientists and explorers. We study life across the galaxy. We do not conquer worlds. We try to protect them." Adam listened carefully while the strange story unfolded. "Then why are those hunters after you?" he asked quietly. Lyra's expression darkened slightly. "Because knowledge is dangerous," she replied. She pointed weakly toward the glowing wound near her side. "My ship carried medical technology far beyond what most civilizations possess," she explained, "technology that can heal diseases, repair organs, even extend life." Adam's mind filled with disbelief again. "Those hunters belong to an empire that fears progress," Lyra said. "They destroy any civilization that might grow strong enough to resist them one day." Adam slowly processed her words. "You're saying they travel across space, destroying planets that become too advanced," he said. Lyra nodded slightly. "Yes." Outside the clinic, the armored hunters slowly moved closer to the building, their scanning device now glowing brighter as the signal grew stronger. Inside the clinic, Adam looked toward the door nervously. "If they find you here," he began, "they will kill anyone who has seen me," Lyra finished quietly. Adam's stomach tightened. "That includes you," she added. For a moment silence filled the room again. The distant sound of metal footsteps echoed softly outside the building as the hunters moved along the wall toward the clinic entrance. Adam's heart beat faster with every step they took. "You should leave," Lyra said suddenly. Adam looked at her in surprise. "If they capture me, they will erase this place," she continued calmly. "Your people are still young as a spacefaring species. They may not consider your world important yet." Adam almost laughed at the idea of leaving someone injured behind. "I'm a doctor," he said firmly. "I don't abandon patients." Lyra looked at him carefully again, studying his expression. There was no fear in his voice now, only determination. For the first time, a faint look of respect appeared in her eyes. "Your species is interesting," she said quietly. Adam raised an eyebrow slightly. "Interesting how?" Lyra gave a small, tired smile. "Most civilizations I have studied would have run already," she said. Outside the clinic, the hunters finally reached the front door. One of them raised his glowing weapon and scanned the metal surface of the entrance. Inside, the building Adam heard the sound clearly now. Heavy armored movement directly outside the door. Lyra slowly stood from the bed, despite her injury, holding the edge of the table for balance. "They are here," she whispered. Adam quickly looked around the clinic for anything that could help them. But the small desert clinic was never built to defend against alien hunters. Outside, the armored figure placed his hand on the door scanner. A sharp blue light flashed across the metal lock. Inside the clinic, Adam and Lyra stood silently as the lock mechanism began to melt under the alien technology. The door slowly started to open, and the hunters were finally about to step inside. The metal lock on the clinic door glowed bright blue as the alien weapon outside slowly melted through it. Inside the small building, Dr. Adam Carter stood frozen for a moment, listening to the low humming sound of the strange technology cutting through the door like hot fire through ice. Every instinct inside him told him to run, but when he looked at Lyra standing weakly beside the emergency bed, he knew he could not leave her behind. Lyra held the edge of the medical table for balance, her breathing still uneven from the injury. The glowing wound on her side pulsed faintly, as if reacting to the danger approaching the room. Her eyes moved toward the door and then back to Adam. "They will enter in seconds," she said quietly. Adam quickly forced his mind to focus. Fear would not help them now. Only thinking clearly would. He looked around the clinic rapidly, searching for anything that might give them even the smallest chance to survive. The building was small and simple, but it still held tools, chemicals, and machines that he had used for years to save lives. Now, he would have to use them to protect one. "Can you walk?" Adam asked quickly. Lyra nodded slightly, though her movement was slow and painful. "Yes, but not far," she replied. Adam pointed toward a narrow hallway behind the treatment room. "There's a storage room at the back," he whispered. "No windows, only one door. Go there and stay quiet." Lyra studied his face for a moment. "What about you?" she asked. Adam gave a small, serious smile. "I'll delay them," he said. Before Lyra could argue, the clinic door suddenly burst open with a loud metallic crack. The melted lock broke apart, and the door swung inward slowly. Cold night air rushed into the building as the tall armored figures stepped inside one by one. Their black armor reflected the clinic lights, and the narrow, glowing lines on their helmets scanned the room like the eyes of silent predators. Adam moved quickly toward the front desk area before they could see Lyra clearly. He grabbed a metal tray of surgical tools and quietly placed several small glass bottles of medical alcohol across the floor near the entrance. Then he took a deep breath and stepped into the main hallway. The first hunter noticed him immediately. The glowing visor of the helmet turned toward Adam's face, studying him with cold silence. Adam raised his hand slowly. "I'm a doctor," he said calmly, trying to sound as normal as possible. "This is a medical clinic. If someone is injured, I can help them." The hunter did not respond with words. Instead, the scanning device on his arm lit up brighter and pointed directly toward Adam's chest. The machine emitted a soft series of beeps as it analyzed him. "Primitive human," a deep mechanical voice finally said from inside the helmet. Behind the first hunter, the scanning device projected a red line across the room, searching for the signal of the alien survivor. Adam's heart beat faster as he realized they would find Lyra within seconds if the scanner reached the hallway behind him. So he made a sudden decision. Adam stepped backward intentionally, knocking over the tray of surgical tools. The metal instruments scattered across the floor with a loud, clattering sound. At the same moment, his foot struck one of the glass bottles of alcohol he had placed earlier. The bottle shattered instantly. The strong smell of alcohol filled the air as the liquid spread across the floor directly in front of the hunters. The lead hunter paused for half a second, adjusting the scanner to understand the sudden movement. That half second was enough. Adam quickly grabbed a lighter from his pocket, something he normally used to sterilize small tools in emergencies. With one quick motion, he flicked it on and tossed it toward the spilled alcohol. A bright flash of fire exploded across the clinic floor. Flames rushed up suddenly, forming a wall of heat and smoke between Adam and the hunters. The armored figures stepped back slightly as the fire spread across the alcohol-covered tiles. Their armor protected them, but the sudden flames interfered with their scanning devices. Adam immediately ran toward the back hallway. "Lyra," he whispered urgently. Inside the storage room, Lyra had already been watching the hallway through the small opening of the door. When Adam reached her, she looked surprised. "You used fire," she said quietly. Adam gave a quick, breathless laugh. "Sometimes old human tricks still work," he replied, but the victory lasted only a moment. From the front room, the hunters quickly adjusted to the flames. Their armor systems activated small, cooling fields that pushed the fire away from their bodies. One of them raised his arm weapon and fired a silent blue pulse toward the burning floor. The flames disappeared instantly, as if they had never existed. Inside the storage room, Lyra saw the glow of that weapon through the hallway. "They are faster than we thought," she warned. Adam looked around the storage room quickly, his mind racing again. Shelves filled with medical supplies lined the walls. Oxygen tanks stood near the corner, and several old machines used for patient monitoring rested on a workbench. Suddenly, Lyra noticed something small inside her torn clothing. She reached into the damaged fabric and carefully removed a thin metallic device, no larger than a coin. Adam looked at it curiously. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra held it between her fingers and activated it with a light touch. The device suddenly unfolded into a small, floating panel of blue light. "A micro-field generator," she explained softly. Adam stared in amazement. "What does it do?" Lyra's eyes focused on the hallway, where the heavy footsteps of the hunters were now approaching again. "It confuses their sensors," she said. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. The hunters had reached the hallway. Lyra placed the small device on the floor beside the storage room door. The blue field expanded quietly, spreading invisible waves across the room. The scanning beams from the hunters suddenly flickered as they entered the hallway. Their sensors began showing multiple false signals bouncing across the walls. The leader of the hunters stopped moving. "Signal distortion detected," the mechanical voice said coldly. Inside the storage room, Adam and Lyra waited in complete silence while the hunters searched the hallway outside. For the first time since the night began, Adam realized something important. The hunters were powerful. Their technology was advanced. But they were not perfect, and humans had something they did not expect: creativity, unpredictable thinking. The leader of the hunters slowly turned his helmet toward the storage room door. The distorted signal was still leaking through the wall. He raised his weapon slowly. Inside the room, Adam held his breath. The hunters had not given up, and the real fight was only beginning. Inside the small storage room of the desert clinic, the air felt tight and silent. Dr. Adam Carter stood beside Lyra, while the faint blue glow from the small alien device spread softly across the floor. The invisible field it created continued to confuse the hunter scanners outside, causing their sensors to show multiple false signals across the hallway. For the moment, the distortion was buying them a little time, but both Adam and Lyra knew it would not last forever. The heavy footsteps of the armored hunters moved slowly just outside the door. Their movements were careful now, no longer rushing forward. The leader had clearly understood that something inside the clinic was interfering with their tracking systems. Adam could hear the low mechanical sound of their scanning equipment adjusting again and again, trying to cut through the distortion field Lyra had activated. He leaned closer to the door and whispered quietly, "They're trying to locate us again." Lyra nodded weakly, her hand still pressing against the injured side of her body. "They will eventually," she said calmly. "Their technology is designed to hunt across entire planets." Adam glanced at her wound again. The glowing injury had stopped bleeding, but her strength was still fading slowly. If the hunters captured her now, she would not be able to resist at all. For a moment, Adam's mind returned to the strange story she had told earlier about civilizations across the galaxy, about powerful empires that destroyed worlds before they could grow strong. The idea still felt impossible. Yet the armored hunters outside the door were proof that the universe was far larger and more dangerous than humanity had ever imagined. Lyra suddenly looked at Adam carefully, studying him with curiosity instead of fear. "You risk your life for someone you just met," she said quietly. Adam shrugged slightly, trying to remain calm even though his heart was beating fast. "That's part of the job," he replied. "Doctors protect people." Lyra's glowing eyes remained fixed on him for a moment longer, as if she was analyzing something deeper than his words. "Your species is unusual," she said softly. Adam raised one eyebrow. "Unusual in what way?" Lyra slowly sat down on a small chair to regain strength before answering. "In most civilizations, survival comes first," she explained. "If danger appears, individuals escape and protect themselves." Adam listened quietly while she spoke. "But humans are different," Lyra continued. "You protect strangers, even when it places your own life at risk. That behavior is rare in the galaxy." Adam gave a quiet half-smile. "Well, every human would do this," he admitted. Lyra shook her head slightly. "More than you think," she replied. Before Adam could respond, the hunters outside the hallway suddenly stopped moving. The scanning devices emitted a sharper series of beeping sounds. Lyra looked toward the door immediately. "They are adapting," she whispered. The distortion field from her device flickered slightly as the hunters adjusted their scanners to filter the interference. Adam felt tension rise again. "How long until they break through the signal?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked down at the small device on the floor, watching its energy pattern weaken. "Minutes," she answered honestly. Adam took a slow breath and began looking around the storage room again. His mind started moving quickly through every tool, every object, every possibility around him. Shelves filled with medical supplies stood along the walls. Oxygen tanks rested beside the corner, and several emergency batteries powered small machines used for life support equipment. Lyra watched him carefully while he studied the room. "You are planning something," she said. Adam nodded slightly. "Humans solve problems," he replied. He walked toward the oxygen tanks and tapped one gently with his finger. A quiet metallic sound echoed through the room. Then he grabbed a small portable defibrillator from the shelf and placed it beside the tanks. Lyra looked confused. "What are you doing?" she asked. Adam continued connecting cables from the battery pack to the defibrillator while speaking. "You said their technology scans for energy signals," he said. "Yes," Lyra replied slowly. Adam pointed toward the oxygen tanks. "Then we give them one." Lyra suddenly understood what he meant. "You want to create a false explosion signal," she said. Adam nodded again. "Something big enough to confuse their scanners," he explained. "If their sensors detect a sudden energy burst, they might believe your device malfunctioned or that your signal was destroyed." Lyra studied him with growing interest. "You are using primitive equipment to simulate an advanced signal burst," she said. Adam smiled slightly. "Improvisation," he replied. Outside the storage room, the hunters suddenly stopped speaking through their communication channel. The leader had finally narrowed the signal distortion to the exact room where Adam and Lyra were hiding. He raised his armed weapon slowly toward the storage room door. Inside the room, Lyra activated a small setting on her device, increasing the distortion field one last time to delay their sensors. Adam finished connecting the final cable and stepped back from the oxygen tanks. "Okay," he whispered. "What happens now?" Lyra asked quietly. Adam picked up the defibrillator paddles and held them carefully. "Now we make a very loud distraction," he said. Outside the door, the hunter's weapon began glowing brighter, preparing to break through the wall. Inside the storage room, Adam activated the defibrillator. A powerful electric surge shot through the cables into the oxygen tank valve. For one split second, everything went silent. Then a massive flash of light burst inside the small storage room as the compressed oxygen ignited into a violent blast of energy. The explosion was not strong enough to destroy the building, but the sudden energy wave flooded the hunters' scanners with chaotic signals. Outside the hallway, the armored hunters stepped back as their devices suddenly lost the target completely. Signal lost, one mechanical voice reported. The leader studied his scanner carefully. The survivor's signal had disappeared completely inside the explosion. Inside the storage room, thick smoke filled the air while Adam coughed and waved his hand in front of his face. Lyra stared at him with clear surprise. "You just tricked a galactic hunter team using medical equipment," she said slowly. Adam wiped soot from his sleeve and gave a tired grin. "Welcome to humanity," he replied. But far above the desert sky, the silent alien aircraft received the sudden energy burst from the clinic below. Inside the dark command room, the leader of the hunters studied the new signal reading carefully. The survivor's signal was gone, but something else had appeared instead. A strange pattern of chaotic energy that did not match any known alien technology. The leader tilted his head slightly behind the dark helmet. "Interesting," he said quietly. "Perhaps this primitive species is not as simple as expected." And somewhere inside the smoke-filled clinic below, the hunters had just begun to realize something dangerous. Humans were far more unpredictable than any species they had hunted before. Thick smoke slowly drifted through the damaged hallway of the small desert clinic, while pieces of broken equipment lay scattered across the floor. The blast from Adam's improvised trap had shaken the entire building, but the walls still stood and the lights flickered weakly above the ceiling. Dr. Adam Carter leaned against the edge of a metal shelf, breathing heavily as he tried to clear the smoke from his lungs. Lyra stood a few steps away from him, still holding her injured side. Her glowing eyes watched the room carefully while the blue device on the floor slowly dimmed. The distortion field had nearly exhausted its energy after the sudden explosion. For a few quiet seconds, neither of them spoke. Outside the storage room, the hunters had stepped back into the hallway. Their scanners were recalculating after the chaotic energy burst that had confused their systems. The leader of the hunters studied his device carefully. The signal he had been tracking had suddenly vanished during the explosion. But the leader did not fully trust the result. "Search the structure," the mechanical voice ordered calmly. The armored hunters began spreading through the clinic again, moving slowly through the smoke while their scanning beams passed across every wall and doorway. Inside the storage room, Adam carefully opened the back emergency door that led outside behind the building. Cool desert air rushed into the smoky room, bringing with it the quiet sound of wind moving across the sand. "We need to move," Adam whispered. Lyra stepped closer to the doorway and looked out into the dark desert behind the clinic. The open land stretched endlessly under the stars, quiet and empty like a sleeping ocean of sand. She turned back to Adam with a thoughtful expression. "The hunters will not stop searching," she said softly. "Even if they lose my signal tonight, they will return with greater forces." Adam nodded slowly, already understanding the danger. "What happens if they do?" he asked. Lyra looked up toward the sky, where countless stars shined above the desert. "Then your world will be noticed," she said quietly. Adam followed her gaze toward the sky. Humanity had always wondered if life existed beyond Earth, if other civilizations were watching from distant stars. Now he finally had the answer, and it was far more dangerous than humanity had imagined. Lyra slowly reached into the torn fabric of her clothing again and removed a second small device. This one looked different from the first, shaped like a thin silver triangle with glowing lines along its edges. Adam studied it with curiosity. "What does that one do?" he asked. Lyra activated the device gently. A soft humming sound appeared as the triangle unfolded into a floating panel of light, projecting strange symbols and star maps into the air. "This is a long-range beacon," she explained. "It will send a coded message to my people across interstellar space." Adam stared at the floating map, amazed by the complex network of stars displayed above the small device. "How long will it take them to reach Earth?" he asked. Lyra paused before answering. "Days, maybe weeks," she said. Adam thought about that for a moment. "So until then we're on our own," he replied. Lyra nodded once. but her eyes remained focused on him thoughtfully. "You have already changed something important tonight," she said. Adam looked confused. "What do you mean?" Lyra slowly deactivated the star map and held the device close again. "In the galaxy, many civilizations fear powerful species," she explained. "But what truly changes history are the rare civilizations that choose to protect others instead of conquering them." Adam crossed his arms slightly. "We're not exactly space travelers yet," he said. Lyra gave a small smile. "Not yet," she replied. Suddenly, the sound of metal footsteps echoed from inside the clinic hallway again. The hunters had reached the back corridor. Adam and Lyra both turned toward the building immediately. "We have to go now," Adam said quickly. They stepped outside into the cool desert night, just as one of the hunters appeared at the end of the hallway inside the clinic. The glowing visor locked onto their movement instantly. The alien weapon on his arm began charging with a bright blue light. But before he could fire, something unexpected happened in the sky above the desert. A powerful beam of silver light suddenly appeared from the stars, cutting silently through the night sky like a falling star. The hunters froze for a moment as their scanners reacted to the massive energy signal. High above the desert clouds, a large triangular craft slowly appeared, its surface glowing softly as it descended through the atmosphere. Lyra looked up with relief. "My people found the beacon faster than expected," she said quietly. The alien hunters immediately began transmitting signals to their aircraft in orbit, realizing they were no longer the only advanced force in the sky above Earth. Inside the clinic, the remaining hunters retreated quickly, preparing to escape before a larger conflict could begin. Adam stood beside Lyra, watching the enormous rescue craft hover silently above the desert sand. A soft column of light extended from the bottom of the ship, touching the ground gently a few meters away from them. Lyra turned toward Adam one last time before stepping toward the beam. "You saved my life tonight," she said. Adam smiled slightly despite the exhaustion on his face. "Just doing my job," he replied. Lyra studied him for one final moment before continuing. "One day your species will travel among the stars," she said softly. "Not as conquerors, but as protectors." Adam chuckled quietly. "That might take us a while," he said. Lyra stepped into the glowing beam of light. "My people will remember this world," she said, "and the human who chose compassion over fear." The beam lifted her slowly toward the massive ship above, disappearing into the glowing entrance as the craft prepared to leave Earth's atmosphere. Moments later, the giant ship rose silently into the sky, vanishing among the stars as quickly as it had appeared. The desert became quiet again. The hunters had vanished. The strange battle in the small clinic was over. Adam stood alone outside the damaged building, looking up at the endless sky, realizing something incredible had just happened. Humanity had made its first true contact with another civilization. And somewhere far across the galaxy, powerful species had just learned an important lesson about Earth. Humans might be young, their technology might still be primitive, but their courage, creativity, and compassion made them something far more dangerous than any weapon. And this night in the desert would one day be remembered as the moment when humanity's future among the stars quietly began.